two sisters, one powerful and commanding, the other gentle and reserved, fall for the same man. Their worlds collide in a storm of passion, betrayal, and heartbreak. Lena, the fierce corporate lawyer, is used to getting everything she wants, including love. But when her seemingly perfect relationship with Ethan begins to crumble, she never suspects her own sister, Ava, has been quietly nursing feelings for him all along. Torn between loyalty and desire, Ava finds herself trapped in an impossible situation. Should she sacrifice her own happiness to protect her sister, or risk it all for the man she loves? As secrets unravel and tensions rise, both women are forced to confront their deepest fears, their truest desires, and the fine line between love and loyalty. In a tale of forbidden love and family bonds, who will emerge victorious when hearts are on the line? One thing is certain: nothing will ever be the same again. Lena Kearns was the kind of woman who commanded attention without even trying. Standing tall with her striking features, she radiated power in every room she entered. A successful corporate attorney at the age of 30, she had a reputation for winning high-stakes cases and crushing anyone who stood in her way. Her life was planned to perfection, and she was the kind of person who thrived on control. Everything had to be in its proper place, including the people around her. Her sister, Ava Kearns, lived in Lena's shadow. Ava was younger by 2 years, quieter, and more introspective. Where Lena walked into a room and filled it with her energy, Ava's presence was softer, almost like a gentle breeze that went unnoticed. She spent her days teaching first graders at the local elementary school, pouring all her love and care into nurturing young minds. Ava's life was simple, and though she loved her work, she often felt overlooked, especially when compared to her vibrant and successful older sister. Lena and Ava lived different lives, but they were close. Lena loved her sister fiercely, though sometimes her protectiveness could feel overbearing. Ava, on the other hand, adored Lena, but always felt she was just a step behind, forever the shadow to Lena's light. Ava admired her sister's strength, but secretly wondered what it would be like to be noticed in her own right, to be seen as someone worthy of the same admiration. Then came Ethan Drake, and everything changed. Ethan was magnetic in every way. He had the kind of charm that pulled people in without effort. His easygoing nature, the way he spoke, the glint in his eyes that promised adventure. Ethan had entered their lives almost by accident, or so it seemed. Lena had met him at a charity event for one of her clients, where he had been volunteering as a photographer. His rugged good looks and carefree attitude drew Lena in instantly, and in true Lena fashion, she didn't wait to see if he felt the same way. She claimed him. At first, everything seemed perfect. Ethan was a doting boyfriend. Lena, with her busy schedule, appreciated that he was relaxed, always going with the flow and never demanding more than she could give. It suited her lifestyle, until it didn't. Over time, Ethan's easygoing nature began to grate on Lena's nerves. She wanted someone who could match her ambition, her intensity, but Ethan was content with a simple life. While Lena was consumed with closing deals and working late into the night, Ethan wanted to travel, to take spontaneous road trips, to live freely. The tension grew, but Lena was too stubborn to admit that their relationship wasn't as perfect as she had thought. Ava, meanwhile, watched from the sidelines, as she always had. She had met Ethan through Lena, and though she would never admit it, she had fallen for him almost immediately. His kindness, his attentiveness, everything about him made Ava feel special, like she was seen in a way she hadn't been before. But Ava, being the quiet, selfless person she was, buried her feelings deep inside. After all, Ethan belonged to Lena. Months passed, and the tension between Lena and Ethan only grew. Lena was always working, and when she wasn't, she was too tired to engage in Ethan's whims. Ethan, in turn, began to withdraw. He stopped showing up to her office with flowers, stopped planning surprise getaways, and eventually stopped waiting up for her to come home. One rainy Friday evening, Ava was working late at the school, grading papers in her small, cozy classroom. The soft hum of rain hitting the windows was soothing, and for a moment she allowed herself to imagine a life where she was brave enough to express her feelings, to tell Ethan how she really felt. But it was a fleeting thought. Lena was her sister, and no man was worth betraying that bond. As she packed up her things and prepared to leave, the door to her classroom swung open, and there stood Ethan. He was drenched from the rain, his usually calm demeanor replaced with something darker, more intense. Ava's heart raced as he stepped inside, closing the door behind him. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Ava asked, concern lacing her voice. She had never seen him like this before. "I couldn't stay in that house anymore," Ethan said, running his fingers through his wet hair. I don't know what to do, Ava. I'm losing her." Ava's chest tightened. "Losing Lena?" Ethan nodded, his eyes filled with an emotion Ava had never seen from him before. Vulnerability. "She doesn't love me, Ava. Not really. I don't even think she ever did. I've tried to be the man she needs, but it's never enough. She's always so focused on her career, on being—" "Well, Lena," he said, emphasizing her name as if it explained everything. "I need something more. Someone who sees me for who I am, not just who they want me to be." Ava swallowed hard. She knew where this conversation was headed, and every fiber of her being wanted to stop it, to walk away. But she couldn't. Instead, she found herself standing frozen, staring into Ethan's eyes, unable to move. "I don't know what to say," she whispered, though she knew exactly what she wanted to say. "I do," Ethan replied, stepping closer to her. "You're different, Ava. You've always been different. You don't push me to be something I'm not. When I'm around you, I feel safe." Ava's breath caught in her throat as Ethan took another step toward her. She could feel the heat radiating from him, his presence overwhelming in the small space of the classroom. Her mind screamed at her to stop this, to push him away, but her heart betrayed her. "I can't do this, Ethan," Ava managed to say, her voice barely above a whisper. "You're with Lena. She's my sister." "I know," Ethan said softly, his hand brushing against her cheek, sending a shiver down her spine. "But I don't love her, Ava. I love you." The words hit her like a freight train. She had dreamed of hearing them for so long, but now that they were real, all she could feel was guilt. Ava stood frozen, her mind reeling with the weight of Ethan's confession. How had it come to this? How had she allowed herself to get so tangled up in this mess? Ethan was her sister's boyfriend, and no matter how much she wanted to believe that his feelings were genuine, she couldn't shake the guilt that was gnawing at her insides. "Ethan, this isn't right," Ava said, her voice trembling. She stepped back, creating distance between them, though every fiber of her being ached to be closer to him. "You're with Lena. We can't." "We can," Ethan insisted, his eyes pleading with her. "Ava, don't you see? I've been falling for you for months. Every time I'm with you, I feel alive. I feel understood. Lena, she's a wonderful woman, but we're not meant to be together." I know that now. Ava shook her head, tears welling up in her eyes. You don't understand, Ethan. I can't do this to her. She's my sister, and she's always been there for me. I can't just take you from her. Ethan's shoulders slumped, and for a moment, Ava saw the weight of his own guilt flash across his face. He took a deep breath and stepped back, giving her the space she needed. I know this is hard, he said, his voice softer now. And I know it's not fair. But what's the alternative, Ava? I stay with Lena, and we all keep pretending that everything's fine when it's not? Or I let you go, and we both spend the rest of our lives wondering what could have been. Ava's heart ached at the thought. She had spent so long watching from the sidelines, loving Ethan from afar, never daring to hope that he might feel the same way. And now, when he was standing in front of her, offering her everything she had ever wanted, she couldn't bring herself to reach out and take it. I don't know, Ava whispered, her voice barely audible over the sound of the rain outside. I don't know what to do. Ethan took a step closer, his hand reaching out to gently cup her face. Ava's breath hitched as his thumb brushed against her cheek, wiping away a tear she hadn't even realized had fallen. Let me love you, Ava, he whispered, his voice filled with a raw, aching sincerity. Please. Ava closed her eyes, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew what she wanted, but the thought of betraying Lena was too much to bear. How could she choose between the man she loved and the sister who had always been her rock? The days that followed were filled with tension and uncertainty. Ava tried to distance herself from Ethan, to push him away and rebuild the walls she had carefully constructed around her heart. But every time she saw him, those walls crumbled a little more. Lena, oblivious to the storm brewing beneath the surface, was consumed with her latest case, working long hours and barely seeing Ethan at all. She had no idea that the man she thought she knew so well was slipping through her fingers, and that her own sister was caught in the middle of it all. One evening, as Ava was preparing to leave the school after another long day, she found Ethan waiting for her in the parking lot. His car was parked just a few spaces down from hers, and as she approached, he stepped out, his eyes filled with the same longing that had been haunting her for weeks. I can't stay away from you, Ava, he said, his voice filled with desperation. I've tried, but I can't. I love you. Ava's heart clenched at his words, but she couldn't let herself give in. Not again. You have to, Ethan, she said, her voice breaking. This isn't right. We can't keep doing this. Ethan took a step closer, his hands reaching out to gently grasp her arms. Ava, I need you. Please. Don't push me away. Ava's resolve crumbled as Ethan pulled her into his arms, his lips crashing against hers in a kiss that was filled with all the emotions they had been suppressing for so long. For a moment, Ava allowed herself to get lost in the feeling, to forget about the consequences, about Lena, about everything but the man she loved. But as soon as the kiss ended, reality came crashing back down around her. I can't, Ava whispered, pulling away from him. I'm sorry, Ethan. I can't do this. Tears filled Ethan's eyes as he nodded, stepping back and letting her go. Ava turned and walked away, her heart breaking with every step she took. She knew that she had made the right choice, but it didn't make the pain any less unbearable. It didn't take long for Lena to figure out what was going on. She wasn't a fool, and the distance between Ethan and Ava hadn't gone unnoticed. She could see the way they looked at each other when they thought she wasn't paying attention, the stolen glances and the tension that seemed to hang in the air whenever they were in the same room. One evening, after a particularly long day at the office, Lena came home to find Ethan sitting on the couch, his head in his hands. He didn't even look up as she walked in, and for a moment, Lena felt a pang of sympathy for him. She knew that their relationship wasn't what it used to be, but she had never imagined that things had gotten this bad. "Ethan," Lena said softly, walking over to sit beside him. "What's going on?" Ethan didn't respond at first, and Lena's heart sank as she realized that he wasn't going to lie to her anymore. "I'm sorry, Lena," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I've been a terrible boyfriend." Lena's heart clenched as she braced herself for what was coming next. "I love Ava," Ethan admitted, his voice thick with emotion. "I don't know how it happened, but it did. And I'm sorry. I never meant to hurt you." Lena sat in stunned silence, her mind racing as she tried to process what he had just said. She had suspected that something was going on between Ethan and Ava, but hearing it confirmed was like a punch to the gut. "You love my sister," Lena said, her voice shaking. "It wasn't a question." Ethan nodded, tears streaming down his face. "I do. But I never wanted to hurt you, Lena. I swear." Lena took a deep breath, trying to keep her emotions in check. She had always prided herself on being strong, on not letting anyone see her weakness. But in that moment, she felt more vulnerable than she ever had in her life. "I don't know what to say," Lena admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan reached out to take her hand, but Lena pulled away, standing up and putting some distance between them. "I need some time," Lena said, her voice trembling. "I need to think." Ethan nodded, his shoulders slumping as he watched her walk away. A week passed, and Lena still hadn't spoken to Ava. She had needed time to process everything, to figure out what she wanted to do. Part of her was angry at Ethan for betraying her, angry at Ava for getting involved with her boyfriend. But another part of her, a part she wasn't ready to admit yet, understood. She had always been the strong one, the one who took charge and made decisions for everyone else. But in doing so, she had pushed Ethan away, had made him feel like he wasn't enough. And Ava, sweet, gentle Ava, had been there to pick up the pieces. One evening, Lena found herself standing outside Ava's apartment, her heart pounding in her chest. She hadn't planned on coming here, but something had pulled her in this direction, and now she couldn't turn back. Taking a deep breath, Lena knocked on the door. Ava opened the door, her eyes widening in surprise when she saw Lena standing there. "Lena," Ava whispered, her voice filled with emotion. I didn't expect to see you." Lena took a deep breath, her heart pounding as she struggled to find the right words. "I'm not here to fight," Lena said softly. I just need to talk." Ava nodded, stepping aside to let Lena in. They sat down on the couch, the silence between them heavy with unspoken words. "I know about you and Ethan," Lena said, her voice trembling. "He told me." Ava's eyes filled with tears as she nodded, her hands trembling in her lap. "I'm sorry," Ava whispered, her voice breaking. "I never wanted to hurt you, Lena. I swear. I tried to push him away, but—" Lena held up a hand, stopping her. "I know," Lena said softly. "And I'm not here to blame you, Ava. I've had some time to think, and I realized that I've made mistakes too." I've been so focused on my career, on being successful, that I didn't see what was happening right in front of me. I didn't see that Ethan needed something I couldn't give him." Ava's tears spilled over as she listened to her sister's words. "I'm not saying it doesn't hurt," Lena continued, her voice thick with emotion. "Because it does. But I don't want to lose you, Ava. You're my sister, and I love you. We'll figure this out somehow." Ava sobbed as she threw her arms around Lena, hugging her tightly. Lena held her sister close, her own tears finally spilling over. "I love you too," Ava whispered, her voice choked with emotion. In the months that followed, things slowly began to heal. Lena and Ava's relationship grew stronger as they navigated the complicated emotions surrounding Ethan. It wasn't easy, but they were determined to rebuild their bond, to move forward together. Ethan and Ava's relationship blossomed as well. With Lena's blessing, they were able to explore their love openly, without the guilt and secrecy that had once plagued them. Ethan had learned from his mistakes, and he was determined to be the man Ava deserved. One evening, under the soft glow of the setting sun, Ethan took Ava to the park where they had shared their first real conversation. It was a quiet, peaceful place, away from the chaos of their lives. As they sat together on a bench, Ethan turned to Ava, his heart pounding in his chest. "I've been thinking a lot about us," Ethan said, his voice soft. "About everything we've been through. And I know we didn't start off the way most couples do, but I wouldn't change a thing." Ava smiled, her heart swelling with love for the man beside her. "I wouldn't either," she said softly. Ethan took a deep breath, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. Ava's breath caught in her throat as he opened it, revealing a sparkling diamond ring. "Ava Kearns," Ethan said, his voice trembling with emotion. "I love you more than I ever thought possible. Will you marry me?" Tears filled Ava's eyes as she looked at the man she loved, the man who had changed her life in ways she never could have imagined. "Yes," Ava whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Yes, I will." As Ethan slipped the ring onto her finger, Ava felt a sense of peace wash over her. It had been a long, difficult journey, but in the end, love had prevailed. And as they kissed under the fading light of the evening, Ava knew that this was only the beginning of their story. A story filled with love, redemption, and the promise of a new future together.